for listeners out there who don't realize it, our body actually does produce creatine.
Right.
A little bit from the liver and a little bit from the brain, right? 2 to 3 grams a day, would you say, our body is actually making? Now, why technically, like if our body can create it itself, why doesn't it just make a little bit more for us?
It is
if it knows it's so good.
Yeah, evolution said no to that, didn't it?
Yeah,
right?
It did.
It's going to be in that. First of all, the muscle will want to hold
that's true.
a really big supply of that. And we can measure it in the blood. We can measure it in inside biopsies, and in both places, much higher concentration inside the muscles. The body makes it. The body has a place to store it. It's a valuable commodity, but it's not. It's difficult to produce extra of it. So it is a great example of where a supplement should be provided.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 Strength and Health Authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode on the Strong by Design podcast. So grateful for our return guest, I think a 5-time guest now here on the podcast, which is just unbelievable. I can't believe that she likes us that much, that she's willing to come back, but you're close enough. So
I'm your neighbor.
Yeah, you're a neighbor. So
Chris, I'm going to be hard to get rid of
forever
and ever.
I just realized that it had been since late July of last year that you had been in the building, and we had so much fun. We did a whole metabolic workout series with how it impacts your blood sugar, and I had my monitor on, and we had, just so much fun in the little mini workouts that we made, and so many great little clips that we got out of it. I'm still sharing these things, by the way, because we had so many, and then plus sometimes you just gotta reshare some of the best stuff because people don't see it or they forget or whatever, and it was just, it's always certain people walk into the building and the atmosphere changes, the energy is different, it's just more, it's more entertaining, it's more enjoyable. I always learn so much from you. You've been coming in here now for, I think the first time we met was
4.5 years ago, right?
4.5 years ago at the summit.
Yes,
the Florida Faith Leader Summit.
Yes.
And you were a speaker, and you were marvelous. And Mike and I got to talk with you, meet with you, and we said we would love to have you in for our podcast, and you did, and you were so gracious. And then since then, we've just continued these great conversations because I always learn so much from you, and I'm always open to, the things that you're doing. I try to follow what you're doing and try to say, well, she talked about this, so it's probably worth investigating. And then, I'm just, I'm kind of one of these guys that just is always seeking. And I find it, this topic in particular that we're talking about today is something that I've been using,
I know, right?
For all the wrong reasons, apparently, for 20, 30 years. And so, and it's for the last year, I can't scroll on YouTube without finding a video that is touching on this particular topic.
Right.
It's blown up.
As a physician, when I would hear about the topic of creatine, I would be like, oh, these are always the bro gym people saying stuff
Yes.
that I'm like, I don't understand half of what they're using it for.
Yes.
I don't think they do. They're learning it from the other guy in the gym, and I am not in the loop. And of course, that's 20 years ago.
Right.
As you march through life, and then I have 3 sons, so then they come through their season of wanting to get muscle, so they come to the same questions, and I'm like, okay. But even during that time, you couldn't get into the literature without saying, if you're trying to reach peak brain performance, if you're trying to repair a brain that's not working well, creatine comes up, and it should. It's got really good literature on how it works, why it works, and dang, the price is right. It's hard to screw it up. There's a few side effects that we're talking about, but boy, I'm excited to talk about it because your people meet my people, meaning the gym people were schooling me long before I ever said this word. And keeping up with you has been like the history of this until about the last 5 years where you're like, oh, I have plenty of studies now saying this is the right place to put some energy. Yeah.
Well, it's the most studied supplement There is, isn't it? I mean, or it's right up there at the top. I mean, it's been around. So, geez, I want to say I was entering high school in around 1990.
Okay.
And I know right around then, creatine was already like a thing. And people were already like putting that white scoop in water or in their protein shakes.
Right.
Because it's supposed to help you feel stronger in your workout. And the whole thing was like, well, it's helping your energy resources basically recharge or work more efficiently in real time. Like while you're working out, you feel like you have more energy in the workout.
I can remember the first bodybuilder who came to me saying, I'm getting ready for this thing. I'm trying to do these extended fasts. I think I need some labs done. And as he's talking about creatine, I'm thinking, why? Why are you using it? And his words back to me were, this is how you grow your muscles better. And he explained it in a way that was totally wrong, but it was the first time I'd heard it, and he seemed to be way more knowledgeable. So for about 10 years, I just kept thinking, yeah, these gym guys use it to make stronger muscles. No. That's not it at all. That's not it at all.
It's not it at all.
It's not what happens in the brain either. So you're a lot closer to the right answer of, it's an energy supply option that
it's an ATP to ADP back to ATP process enhancer, correct?
So yeah, you got to love chemistry in order to follow this, right?
Yes.
So let's just
you do.
ATP to ADP. What are you doing there? Okay, you've spent some energy. That ATP is how we feel energy. Well, where do you usually get it from? Glucose or fat or a ketone, and it goes through the mitochondria, and out comes ATP. That's common, right? There's a few things involved that you might need to have as cofactors, but I don't hear about creatine, at all.
Right.
Until you look really close in the fine print that says, okay, if you have, let's do brain cells because they're a lot easier for me to talk about. You got a brain that's doing its normal day, but it runs out of fuel. It's going low on fuel. The glucose has settled down, which means you're kind of that afternoon slump of, I just can't concentrate.
I'm about to hit it in 10 minutes.
And you think, okay, what's the fastest way to get somebody to feel better? Swallow some sugar, deliver it to the brain, you feel better. The reason you're feeling better is the production of ATP. But it takes time to do that. The glucose wasn't available. And in today's world, most of my patients, if they try to add glucose, it's not really increasing their glucose in the brain because they have so much insulin weighing down that reward of glucose. You got to take in a bunch of sugar.
Yes.
So then you say, okay, you could be in a ketogenic state, and that's another place of fuel. But you and I have played this game. It's hard to be in a I'm ketogenic. I teach this, but do I appreciate that I'm weird? And most of the people that are looking for persistent ketosis, they're going to dabble in it to say, I'm having a brain slump right now. Let's get fat burning in your brain better. We'll get you there in like 3 days. Okay, that's not going to be something where most people can't turn on the ketogenic state like that.
Right.
But creatine, think of it as a way to park and hold a phosphate. So that ADP, the D is diphosphate, ATP, triphosphate. And of course, when you can get that triphosphate available, that's ADP to ATP is going to be the energy is back. Your brain feels fuel. Okay. So what does creatine do? It holds the phosphate in its parked position. And it's sitting right there next to the mitochondria, right next to inside the astrocyte, and ready to donate its phosphate instantly when you need it. The harder part is, how do you get enough in your brain?
Right.
Because
it's the muscles, that's what we're going to talk about, right?
Greedy little
the
shits.
muscles are greedy, and they want it.
Yes.
And so your dosing has to be of a certain...
Right. It is not an accident. When you see creatine, you should get a big bucket of it.
Yeah.
That's not fake news.
And it's actually not that expensive.
Right. I mean, if you only put 5 grams in a day, your muscles will see it. When you tag it and you look at the scans, they go into the muscle, it kind of parks there, it pulls in some water with that muscle, which is nice for the muscle, but you'll hear the naysayers say, I took creatine and I gained 4 pounds or something. And it's water weight, which is not bad to have your muscles having that little bit of water in them, but expect that. And then know that you have a bunch of muscles to satisfy before your brain gets it.
Yes.
It gets to that muscle. It holds on to there much quicker. So it was about a year ago where I bring things home to my husband and say, we should do this. And he's like,
This about a year ago.
Yeah. So
And that's right. He's the little test dummy.
Yes.
You're
So unfortunately, I brought home two things at once where I was looking at a lot of things on social media, but things I'd heard of that I thought, yeah, I should try that. Yeah, maybe that's a good idea. The science was good enough, but I just never pulled the lever. Like, okay, that's a distraction. Stay in the lane I'm in. I brought home methylene blue
Yes.
and a big bottle of creatine. And I thought it would be a good idea to just take the two of those at once, first thing in the morning.
Oh boy.
So 10 grams in there, 2 scoops, which is a pretty good dose.
Yeah.
Especially
it's
if you've
maybe it's a double dose, basically. Yeah.
And there are some GI systems that could handle that, but at first, most are not going to handle that very well. And then I'd mix it in the morning, and I'd put if you look at methylene blue, you're going to need 18 droppers to get some of the advanced neuroscience stuff. And I'm like,
Wow.
You'll have blue teeth and blue tongue for a week. So I would start with 2 droppers of this methylene blue. It's a super baby dose, but I was like, oh, we'll try it. And methylene blue tastes terrible. So I'd stir it up, and then I'd take a shot first thing in the morning. And I did this for at least 2 weeks straight without missing a dose. And I definitely could feel improvement in my brain function. And I wasn't sure who to give credit to.
Okay.
But I also had the side effect that most people, when you haven't taken creatine and if you just shot it down the hatch, you're going to have some
You're
diarrhea.
running to the bathroom.
Yeah. So I think most of it I did not absorb. But I was just trying to say, let's see if I notice a difference. Do I notice a difference? I ran out of methylene blue after about a 3-week process, and then just kept the creatine because I had this big jug of it, and learned, if I take a 5 gram in the morning and then put 5 grams in for my coffee and then say, if I just swirl that in there and drink that over the next couple of hours, okay, the GI side effects went away. And recently I went to Iceland, which is not too far of a time shift, but enough that my 54-year-old brain does not like that. And so I prepared that, all right, I'm going to have creatine along because it really is the delivery of fuel when it's slumping.
Yeah.
And if you watch, what is the problem with the time shift is your circadian rhythm is off. It's pumping in energy when you used to get up, and now it's the time. Yeah. So it takes.
It's a real thing. It's a very real thing.
Fastest reset I've ever had.
Really?
Wow. Now I bumped up to 20 grams when I did that.
And that's what I took this morning.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, cognitively, I feel good. I usually only get 6 hours of sleep because I stay up too late.
Oops.
That's my trouble. I'm consistently getting up early in the morning. I get up by 6:30, 6:40 each day. But I have a tendency sometimes I will manipulate my bedtime to enjoy solo time.
Right.
Kids are asleep, wife's asleep. I can clean the kitchen by myself. I can watch a YouTube video while I'm doing this. I can watch Fox News. I could do whatever I want.
Right.
I'm like a bachelor in my own house for 2 hours. But so the sleep deprivation thing, I feel like for me, is navigated by my creatine intake to some degree. And I don't know how sustainable that is.
Right.
But I do cognitively feel, I've been taking creatine myself now. I usually stay in the 5 to 10 gram range daily. But this morning I double dosed. I did two how many scoops would that be? 4, basically 4 scoops.
Any diarrhea, any GI stuff? Okay,
nothing.
Good.
So that doesn't, maybe because my system's so used to
taking it,
having it, and I'm a larger person, so maybe that helps a little bit. I don't know, but I don't think I've ever had any bowel issues with my creatine intake. But like I say, I usually hover between 5 to 10. Today's the only day I've ever gone to 20. But all the signs seem to point to that's the magic range if you really want to feel it up here.
Because to get it in the brain, especially your muscle mass is large, that process of it'll soak right into the muscles. You tag it and you do the scan and you're like, it's not a brain supplement.
Yes.
Until you satisfy the nourishment of.
And there's some loss probably getting into
it. Yep.
Right? The blood-brain barrier or whatever, that you're going to have some
It's picky.
Some loss.
It's picky what it's going to let in there. But I mean, I also think when you look at, so let's just take, Chris sleep deprived, 6 hours, wakes up in the morning, hoping to use a focused brain for the business until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock?
Yeah, 4. Yeah.
Okay, so in those hours, the amount of energy that your brain is 20 20% of the body's energy is going to the brain. And when you look at the power needed to sustain what you're asking your brain to do, it would be equivalent to what your brain needed supply for a week 150 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
So you take today's intensity,
Holy cow.
right, with the lights that are up all night, the cars, the process, just the way our brains are really. I mean, you're successful today if you can manage all of this, and then that's the great thing that happens during the peak years of life. What's the danger is what happens. What's the expense you're paying for those later years of life? Right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's do before creatine. The best way to prevent that is you're asking this churn, this energy, this brain function to be a high output. Not for one day. You do work Monday through Friday, and then you got kids and life after Saturday. So that high peak performance is most days of the week, most days of the year.
Yeah.
And when you sleep, as you do that output, you make some trash in the brain. That's normal. Every cell has this trash. To sweep it out, it is that depth of sleep in that third, fourth, and fifth hour of sleep. And without that super depth of sleep, the trash just stays there. I had a client talk to me about his father this past week and said, yeah, he's doing great, this lean man in his late 30s, but my dad at 65, I don't see it, I don't believe it, but they say he's got memory problems. And he's like, he downplays, this is not really, it's not that bad. I don't notice it. It's not that bad. He's really smart. He runs 25 years of seeing patients, I know without ever meeting that dad that he's insulin resistant. The trash has been building up for years.
Yes.
And he has got a multi-million-dollar company because he's got high peak brain performance, not for a day or a week, but for consistent time over these last few decades.
Yes.
And the price you pay is if you don't take out the trash. There's, 65, that's really young for the wife, the family to say, he's not normal. And then we can tell better than we've been able to in the past who's headed for Alzheimer's. Wow. He's got Alzheimer's. And to back away from the edge is a conversation I would have with somebody in your season of life where, peak performance, he's able to, function on those 6 hours. And then things like creatine come along and they say, I can even boost that performance by delivering the energy that it needs and do well. Again, I think you're going to need that 10 to 20.
Yes.
Reach for 15. If you get that half the time, I think you're really delivering that phosphate holder into the brain, but not at the expense of that sleep and recovery.
Yes, you would say that's more important than me overdosing or upping my dose on creatine.
I mean, I do it too. So I'm telling you this it's a great hack. It's got really good science behind it. And I'm running one of those companies too where you're like, there's a lot of decisions I got to make in the day. And by 3 o'clock, you should erase all of the ones I made after 3 o'clock yesterday. My brain was not doing a good job. But welcome to America and running lives that are full of intensity and our respect for how much downtime it takes to recover from that high peak function.
Yeah.
And how we can make it better with methylene blue. Yes, we can make it better with creatine. And the evidence is really strong, but it's at an expense that, I'm still going to continue to use creatine. I'm still going to force my husband to use it because it's really powerful in that delivery. I mean, if you go back to the guy who has Alzheimer's at a young age, he didn't use creatine, I'm sure of it.
Right.
So if you would say, if in the last 20 years we bridged that energy gap, because he was missing ATP at a time when he was really asking his brain to work hard. If he would have thrown creatine into the equation, he could have delivered on the energy. But he should have also done the other things that were lowering the trash in his brain. And I contend that's all about decreasing that insulin. The workout we did, I had people say, do you do that every day? I'm like, no, but I do it often enough that my muscles get that workout. And from now to the time God lets me age to hopefully 90s, I love that the brain stays functional because the muscle was stressed. And that whole equation of I want peak brain performance, and when I take out the trash in my brain, which I think about frequently, I teach about this frequently, creatine doesn't stop you from doing it. It increases the delivery of those marginal cells that are hungry for a little more energy, and you like that intense life, so do I. But if you live that intense life like this guy did, it's at a cellular level, adding to the trash, and there's apoptosis, there's cell death, so there's atrophy of their brain when you chronically under-deliver the energy. So the creatine doesn't, I mean, again, there's not long-term human studies on this high a dose, but I'm very encouraged by looking at the brain volume preservation, the output of energy that you can ask from some of the mammal models that are really good at saying this did help bridge them. Like if I was going to tell this man what to do, he's got insulin resistance. I want him to be on a ketogenic diet for the next couple of years, consistently, to take out the trash and really back away from the edge of what a 65-year-old with Alzheimer's would do. Okay, that's hard. That's going to take your wife, your family is going to be on board to help you not eat carbs and sugar and all the stuff. And he's 65 with borderline dementia. Okay, so he's gonna screw it up a few times before we get there. But a supplement will bridge the energy, and so add that into that cognitive decline, put that in consistently, figure out how to put the 15 to 20 grams in, at least 15 for somebody in his situation, in hopes that those cells on the edge that are not getting the energy they need because of insulin resistance, because of the pathology that's going to take a while to undo, I would say that's the best answer for somebody in that setting. And then, of course, the best answer for you is to go to bed early.
I know. I know. It's very simple. Usually the simpler the answer, the better it is. And for me, it is just go to bed when you're tired.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times I'll be, my family and I, we're pretty tight. We're pretty close. We'll all be, we got dogs, we got cats, we got kids. We'll all be together on the sofa sometimes. Even my son will sit next to my 14-year-old son, who's as tall as I am now. He'll sit next to me or whatever and be like, "Can you rub my calf?"
Yeah.
He's an athlete, so something always like bugging him or hurting. But I'll be like falling asleep. It'll be 9:30, and everybody's, my daughter has to get up and go brush her teeth, and I can tell my body is like
Tired.
Go to bed.
Right.
And then I'll get up and I'm starting to get the coffee ready for the next morning. I make sure the pots, put stuff in the dishwasher. Now I'm up and moving around. Now I'm recharged now. I'm waking up now when I should just be drifting off and doing the same thing everybody else is doing. I want to make sure they do what they need to do. My wife's a sleeper. She needs her sleep.
Right.
She'll take naps. She doesn't care if she's the first one to go to bed in the house. She's a great sleeper, and she doesn't function well if she doesn't get her sleep. Whereas I, on the other hand, for some reason, have convinced myself subconsciously that I'm okay as long as I get my 6 hours, kind of thing. But I know getting 7 to 8 would be a huge benefit to me.
Yeah, I mean, one of the tells I always, what does midnight mean to you?
Midnight means it's time. Right?
Right.
Like midnight means like brush your teeth. Like
right.
It's time. You hit. It's tomorrow. Tomorrow's arrived.
What I tell the patients when they say that, because that answer is what midnight means to them is, I'm pushing it. I need to get to bed.
Right.
Okay. And I tell them that midnight is supposed to be in the middle of the night.
Now I know some people will take. I have a funny side story. We'll come right back to this, but I have a mentor of mine, Dr. Ron Eccles, who's a dear friend. And as you get older, you have this thing that happens where the early riser, mentality kind of really takes its and grows into its own thing. So it's now it's not, I don't get up at 5. I don't get up at 4. I get up at 3. And I'm like, well, when are you going to bed? I'm like, are you going to bed? He's like, well, I start getting kind of by 7, like I'm winding down and I want to be in bed by 8. I'm like, holy crap. And he's your people. So this is you. Is this where you're at?
Not quite 7 o'clock.
Yeah, he's hilarious though, because he's like, it's gotten worse, if you will, or better. I guess depends on which way you look at it. Over the last 4 or 5 years, because I've known him for about 10, and I remember he used to always brag about kind of being up by 5, between 5 and 6, and then it became 4. Now it's 3. I'm like, I'm like, Ron, we're getting close to like going to bed at 6, getting up at 2. What are you, a police officer?
Right.
You got some weird hours going on.
Right. That's not circadian rhythm at all anymore.
No,
You can push it.
he's going too far.
Right.
So I do get it though. Midnight does mean it's middle of the night.
Right.
Ideally, yeah, at 9 o'clock. That's kind of like, especially in Florida, 9 o'clock, it's dark
Right.
finally, for 8 months out of the year when the sun is up until like 8-ish or after 8. By 9, your body is telling you like, it's dark out now. It's time to like,
Right.
slow down, wind down, go lie down, go, get horizontal and just, and then wake up at 6 with the birdies.
Right.
And it's kind of the way nature designed
That
us.
kitchen will still be there in the morning. All those dishes will still be there
I
in the
know,
morning.
they will. And you know what? I can have just as much pleasure getting up early and doing that.
Right.
And listening to maybe some worship music or a podcast
Right.
or something when no one's up yet. I could do that. I could just reverse it. I
And
could
your
just
brain
flip
would
it.
reward you. It really does.
I know it would.
It's a huge deal. Like,
Yeah.
I wish
I know.
when people come and ask, I did this, one of my favorite little things on my resume was the Department of Defense asked me to do a workshop throughout,
Yes.
and it's how do you heal brains? And of course, I'm trying to teach all the stuff you don't need to be a doctor to do. And so the first like 2 modules are all on why and what sleep is doing to the brain and what happens when you chronically don't get it. But the whole world is hypnotized into saying, just push harder and do more and exactly where you're at. And I've been there and I'm not perfect, but boy, I especially when you flip times on this little trip to Iceland we did, it was like at least 4 days of me being a crabby.
Wow.
Because I did the creatine when I left.
Yes.
But for some reason, when I got back, I don't know, I wanted my brain to work on vacation, but when I got home, I wasn't taking it. And it took me out the 4th day. I'm like, well, that was stupid.
Should have been high dosing it when you got back.
Since Monday, I was back on the creatine, and I'm like, oh, my brain totally works. Now, I don't know if it was time or if it was the creatine, but it was definitely measurable. I did a lot better with the supplement.
I want to, at the end, I want to actually get to types of creatine and certified and Creapure and Germany and all. I want to talk about that a little bit, at least get your feedback on that. But before we get to that, because there's a lot of other
there's some good questions you
items.
have.
Yeah, these are good things. For listeners out there who don't realize it, our body actually does produce creatine,
Right.
a little bit from the liver and a little bit from the brain, right? 2 to 3 grams a day, would you say our body is actually
right.
making? Now, why technically, like if our body can create it itself, why doesn't it just make a little bit more for us?
It is a,
if it knows it's good, so good.
Yeah, evolution said no to that, didn't it?
Yeah,
right?
it did.
It's going to be in that. First of all, the muscle will want to hold
that's true.
a really big supply of that. And we can measure it in the blood. We can measure it in inside biopsies, and in both places, much higher concentration inside the muscles. And the waste product of getting it out of your body is also part of how we assess kidney function. So you'll notice that the body makes it. The body has a place to store it. It's a valuable commodity. But it's difficult to produce extra of it. So it is a great example of where a supplement should be provided.
Yes.
I mean, I go back to that 150 years ago versus now. That brain requirement to succeed is real.
Yes.
And there's not a way to eat to do that. You really do need to supplement.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to eat enough animal product,
Right.
Fish or whatever other
even,
options out there to get the amount that we need.
Right.
That we
20
get.
grams.
Yes.
Just think how much meat you'd have to eat to do that. There's I couldn't do that. I would do everything.
I would think
that successful day would be spent eating. Like no, that's
Correct.
a lot of volume of food.
Yeah.
So for that reason, you can make it, yes, but it is just if you're looking at the massive production needed for enhancing brain function, you're going to need a supplement.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's because we forget sometimes based on what our familiarity with this supplement. There could be people listening right now that have never used this,
supplemented it.
don't know much about it, only have maybe heard it in whispers as something that a bunch of stinky muscle meathead gym guys take, right? They have no idea that it has all these other benefits to it. As we've been saying, the traditional dosage for creatine, monohydrate, is mostly what we're talking about here, is a 5 grams per day. But like Dr. Boz is saying, your muscles are saying, I want all of that, all of it.
Yeah.
Muscles are greedy. Some is lost crossing the blood-brain barrier anyway. So that's where everything, all the science seems to point to this like extra dosage of going not just double, but even triple or quadruple.
I think that's also where I lost that this was even something you could do for a brain.
Right.
Forever. When those, muscle gym say, oh, can I do this? Can I? And they're taking it, but they're about the 5 grams as well.
Yeah.
And everything says, yeah, fine for muscles. I didn't even understand that you could get into the brain until about like 5 years ago, saying, oh, you can.
Wow.
And then,
and as much as you've
Right.
known and work you've done on the
muted.
brain, but were the studies necessarily weren't talking about creatine and brain, right?
They left it to the muscles.
Everything was looking at the muscles.
And now you look at, the explosion of brain information over the last, two decades starts with how we image it, how we can see it, how we can, measure what's functioning, what's not functioning. So to get to the level that we're at saying, what can creatine do for the chronic aging of that? I mean, I think that's the place where, why is this so powerful is we now can, map out, do you have a risk for Alzheimer's? Do you have a double risk for Alzheimer's? The genetic predictors. And then when people have that, they come to their physician saying, what is it I could do to mitigate that, to say, okay, so I got these nasty genes. I'm at risk for Alzheimer's. Does it mean stay skinny? There's more to it. And I think that it was the advent of that real understanding where I saw the connection of, wow, we really could supplement this at a higher level. And almost like you couldn't awaken the function of what that creatine was going to do for the brain until it got to those higher doses. Wow. So it goes right into those muscles, not going to do much more. When you trickle 5, I keep thinking, when I was doing that 2 weeks of 10 grams and then I'd be on the toilet an hour later, I think I probably wasn't doing anything for my brain then because it was all going out the toilet.
That's right.
Like it wasn't absorbing.
Kind of wasted, yeah.
Right.
So, would you recommend then for people, ladies like yourself, smaller in stature, right? There's a 100-pound weight difference, more or less, between the two of us. So the way you ingest something versus me, or the dosage you're receiving versus me, probably should look a little bit different, right? Maybe 5 grams per serving for you is best case scenario, where I can obviously handle maybe 10 or 15 or 20 in
muscle
one
mass
time.
has a lot to do with that. So I do agree with you that when I look at what would I take it for? It's brain function all day long, right?
Yes.
10 milligrams is a minimum, and I would put that in a place where I get it over a few hours, so the absorption is more guaranteed. But I wouldn't go under 15 if you're saying the reason you're taking it is brain enhancement. Start at 15 with the muscle mass that you've got. I mean, they're just so greedy. You don't get to count that first.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I definitely have to be better at that, because I bet you I've been only living in the 5 to 10 gram. I do like a heaping, a heaping scoop,
It's
and maybe
cheap,
sometimes it's 2. So maybe at most I'm getting 10.
Right.
And so I'm probably kind of underdosing it if I'm really looking for the cognitive side.
And do you go on and off of it just because of?
So I used to for years. I would be on and off of it, like cycling it.
I heard this from many patients.
Yeah, so
too.
kind of weird, right? I think we did it because that's what we heard from somebody else.
I could never find
you don't have to always take it. Your body gets used to it. It adapts. All these weird things that we would all convince ourselves of.
I think it's the water weight they were doing it for, and I couldn't
think
find
so
a
too.
really good answer to that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess for ladies, maybe that would be more of a concern, right? The extra water that's in the cell because of the added creatine.
I would still
pulled into the cell,
not give it that much credit.
Yeah. So I don't know. So many things that we do in our lives are just conditional based.
Yeah, the mimicking, like this is what.
Mimicking. Yeah.
So I wouldn't, but so in the last, let's say 6 months, have you had times where you're without this and then you get back on it?
I would say maybe just days at a time, maybe because if I was traveling, I didn't bring any with me, or, but no, I would say consistently 6 to 7 days a week, I'm having my creatine.
That's great.
But I again, I don't feel like my dosing, and it's only because I would say too, It's been probably just the last 6 months I've been paying more attention to this as a brain. I was not looking at this at all a year ago when I was preparing for my TED Talk and all that stuff. I wasn't looking into creatine for brain at all. I probably would have made its way into my talk a little bit or something. I don't know. I don't know, but it would have influenced my thinking about this topic at a long time ago. So it's just been everything I've been seeing.
On those, so travel days can be tough because if you're going in an airplane, but on the travel days when you didn't have it, do you notice the weight change?
Oh no,
It's
not,
really
not at all.
That's where I was going with that. Like,
not at all. I'm not. I would say I'm not a lean enough type of guy where I would even notice it.
So
now maybe competitive bodybuilders,
right,
who
which is
are
not my audience.
6 to 10% body fat, can pick up on that stuff. Like, I'm a little bloated today, you know. Like, that's not me. I don't live in that space.
So that's where I would park that. When you say, "Oh, wouldn't a lady have more of this?" Look, in the most people, that insulin resistance, that aging of life, still has so many other factors that if they slightly notice, I mean, if they're the kind of person who's weighing every morning, and I've had patients say, "Oh, I was up about 1.5 pounds," and I'm like, "Who checks it that often?"
That's right.
I don't do that.
Right.
But when if you were on a wrestling team and you said I had to weigh in, okay, well then get off it for the 2 days before weigh-in.
Right.
But that performance for good energy to the muscle, creatine is going to be your friend, and but that's a different lean body mass. The people we're talking to that are trying to use it for brain do not major in the minor leagues there, where yes, there's some water shifting. It's not bad water shifting. Forget about it. Just focus on
forget about it.
Did you get those grams in? And for you, I would push to 15, and then have it in a way that your body can absorb well.
Yeah.
I mean, the other part of any supplement that I think patients need to pay really a close attention to is how well does your body absorb anything.
Yeah.
Like if you've got that irritable bowel story that, they can get the diarrhea from a little spice of this, or they're very sensitive. They add creatine and they have increased stools that don't always go away. Like every time they take it, they get the diarrhea. And that's why it's all over every, blog saying, here's what you should do for that. And what I would focus on is fix that absorption problem, quit putting your supplement right out the toilet.
Yep.
As I went back onto creatine after that 2-week sprint, or I never really stopped the creatine, but said, okay, let's figure out how to do this in a way that isn't such a shot down the hatch. And putting the 5 grams in the morning, going into a coffee, it doesn't have a flavor. It's got a chalkiness. So
it's a chalkiness to it. And obviously if you're doing the substantial dosing of like 15 or 20, you're going to want to probably have it in something where it hides it a little bit better.
Right. Or putting the 5, 3 to 4 times a day.
Yes. Or just spread it out like that. Just have it with you. Or, if you have one at the house and have one at your work or whatever. And then it's probably pretty easy. We're very habitual, right? So if you just are always doing it around the time when you have your coffee in the morning at home, or around lunchtime when you have your lunch and you have a drink and you just do it then.
At first I thought, oh, it's terrible to have it in water, and I just thought it was and now I'm like, there's no taste to it.
Yeah, there's no real taste to it.
And the more I read about it, the more I'm like, well, this is worth whatever, that palate thing that I had at first too, saying, oh, I just am going to shoot it down with the methylene blue. So I like it. My perfect day is 5 in the morning, 5 in the coffee, and I do have some at the office that I'll probably supplement maybe 3 times a week, but it's not consistent enough that I do it that well.
Yeah.
10 is my goal.
And I think I've heard you speak on this, and definitely some other people, that when it's mixed with other things like caffeine or coffee, does it degrade it, or does it impact or affect the absorption of it, or the whatever? And it seems based on everything that I heard, it's maybe, but minimal. I maybe don't mix it right into the hottest coffee and let it sit there and boil it or something afterwards. But I mean, I think if you put it in an iced coffee, or if it's in coffee for all of 5 to 10 minutes, how is that going to really have too much impact?
It is the exposure to heat that. So even the hottest of coffees, you're still not going to have hours of it being heat.
Right.
That's where it'll change the absorption.
Right.
Once at body temperature, it's going to be the same absorption process for creatine. And its impact. And here's the other part about when their gut is is healthy. And so I don't care what you're putting in it, that you've got, think of the patient who has irritable bowel syndrome.
Yes.
So they have stools that do things, they're very sensitive to it. They know who they are. And when I see people really graduate into a less inflammatory state, almost always a persistent state of ketosis, that they're hitting a good ketogenic state 3 to 5 days a week, those symptoms of bowel get way less.
Yeah.
Now that supplement goes in and really does have, so the impact that heat would have on a creatine supplement or several other things is so nominal compared to the impact you'll have when you establish a thick gut biome, a nice thick mucus layer that lines your gut and helps with that absorption, helps that gut biome to grow in a place that's really healthy. That's a good place to put the focus.
Yeah.
And those people know who they are. I mean, they
Yeah,
walk
they
in
do.
and they're like, I think I have irritable bowel. Here's what I think you should do. And you're like, but before you do all those tests, I think you should try to fix the problem, because it is fixable, but it turns into a shift of the chemistry not being inflamed, not for a day, but you're going to have to do that for 6 to 8 weeks just to really see that this is fixable.
Be sure to come back for part 2 of our conversation with Dr. Boz in the next episode of Strong by Design. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. And if you found this episode helpful, leave us a quick review and share it with someone who's on their own journey to living strong by design.